The history of the United States is a tapestry woven from the lives and dreams of countless people who crossed oceans, overcame hardships, and dared to dream of something greater. From its beginnings as a collection of 13 rebellious colonies to its emergence as a global superpower, the United States has been a land of contradictions, resilience, and boundless possibility. The Age of Exploration. Seeds of a New World. In the late 15th century, European explorers were determined to find new trade routes to Asia. Among them was an Italian navigator, Christopher Columbus, who under the Spanish flag set sail westward. When Columbus landed in the Bahamas in 1492, he inadvertently opened the door to a new world for European explorers and settlers. Over the next century, Spanish, French, Dutch, and British settlers would establish colonies across the Americas. The British established their first permanent settlement in Jamestown, Virginia, in 1607, marking the beginning of the English colonial presence. Jamestown was a story of survival against all odds, with settlers battling starvation, disease, and tensions with Native American tribes. They found economic salvation in the cultivation of tobacco, a cash crop that would shape the colony's economy and lead to the establishment of plantations, and with them, the arrival of enslaved Africans to work the land. The birth of the United States, revolution and independence. As the colonies grew, they became more autonomous and prosperous, yet the British government imposed heavy taxes to cover the debts of the French and Indian War. Taxes like the Stamp Act and the Tea Act stirred resentment among colonists, leading to widespread protests and the rallying cry, "No taxation without representation." The Boston Tea Party in 1773, a defiant act of dumping British tea into Boston Harbor, became a symbol of colonial resistance. In 1776, as tensions escalated, representatives from the 13 colonies gathered in Philadelphia. On July 4th, they adopted the Declaration of Independence, a document authored by Thomas Jefferson that asserted the colonies' right to be free and independent states. The Revolutionary War followed, with colonial forces led by George Washington facing off against the might of the British Empire. Against all odds, the Continental Army secured victory in 1783, and the United States was born, building a new nation, the Constitution and westward expansion. The young nation faced enormous challenges, including the task of forming a stable government. The first attempt, the Articles of Confederation, proved ineffective, leading to the Constitutional Convention of 1787. The framers crafted a new constitution, establishing a federal system with checks and balances. In 1789, George Washington became the first president, setting precedents that would shape the office for generations. As the 19th century dawned, the United States looked westward, fueled by the belief in manifest destiny, the idea that Americans were destined to expand across the continent. The U.S. acquired vast territories. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 doubled the nation's size, followed by expeditions like those of Lewis and Clark, who mapped the western lands and encountered indigenous tribes. However, this expansion came at a tragic cost for Native American communities, who were displaced through forced treaties and brutal removals, such as the Trail of Tears in the 1830s. A nation divided, the Civil War and emancipation. By the mid-19th century, tensions over slavery intensified. The North, increasingly industrialized, opposed the expansion of slavery, while the South, with its agricultural economy, relied on enslaved labor. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president on an anti-slavery platform, prompting Southern states to secede from the Union and form the Confederate States of America. The Civil War, which began in 1861, was the bloodiest conflict in American history, pitting brother against brother. After years of brutal fighting, Union forces prevailed in 1865. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, but the nation faced the immense challenge of Reconstruction. Although African Americans were granted citizenship and voting rights through the 14th and 15th Amendments, they continued to face discrimination and violence, especially in the South. Innovation and industry, the Gilded Age. As the 19th century progressed, the United States entered the Gilded Age, a period of rapid industrialization and economic growth. Entrepreneurs like Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, and J.P. Morgan amassed vast fortunes, building empires in steel, oil, and finance. Cities like New York and Chicago expanded rapidly, with skyscrapers and factories reshaping the skyline. New inventions from the telephone to the electric light bulb revolutionized daily life. However, this era of wealth was marred by deep inequality. Factory workers endured grueling hours in unsafe conditions, leading to the rise of labor unions and strikes. Immigrants from Europe and Asia arrived by the millions, seeking a better life but often encountering prejudice and hardship. Despite the challenges, these immigrants played a crucial role in building America's infrastructure and cultural diversity. A global power, the World Wars and the Great Depression. In the early 20th century, the United States emerged as a global power. When World War I broke out in 1914, the U.S. initially remained neutral, but in 1917, it joined the Allies, helping to turn the tide of the war. The post-war period saw a cultural renaissance, known as the Roaring Twenties, characterized by jazz music, flapper fashion, and technological advancements like the automobile. However, the prosperity was short-lived. The stock market crash of 1929 plunged the country into the Great Depression, a period of economic hardship that saw widespread unemployment, poverty, and despair. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs sought to revive the economy through public works and social reforms, laying the groundwork for the modern welfare state. In 1941, the United States was drawn into World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor. American soldiers fought across Europe and the Pacific, and the country became known as the Arsenal of Democracy, supplying Allied forces with weapons and resources. The war ended in 1945, with the U.S. emerging as one of the world's two superpowers, alongside the Soviet Union. The Cold War and civil rights. The post-war period was marked by the Cold War, a tense standoff between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. This ideological battle between democracy and communism led to conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, and Cuba, as well as the nuclear arms race and the space race. The 1960s saw the triumph of the Apollo 11 mission, with American astronauts landing on the moon in 1969, a symbol of technological achievement. Domestically, the civil rights movement challenged segregation and discrimination. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks inspired millions to demand equality. Landmark legislation, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, dismantled legal segregation, though the struggle for racial equality continued. Modern America, from the information age to the present. As the Cold War ended in the late 20th century, the United States entered the information age, transforming industries with advancements in computing and the internet. The 1990s saw economic prosperity, while the turn of the millennium brought new challenges. The terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, marked a turning point, leading to wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and reshaping U.S. foreign policy. The early 21st century has been defined by rapid technological change, cultural shifts, and political polarization. The election of Barack Obama in 2008 marked a historic milestone as he became the first African-American president. Social movements, from LGBTQ+ rights to Black Lives Matter, have reshaped the national conversation, reflecting ongoing debates about justice, equality, and the American identity. The resilience of a nation. The story of the United States is far from over. It is a nation that has constantly reinvented itself, driven by the ideals of freedom, opportunity, and democracy. Its history is one of struggle and progress, of contradictions and triumphs. Through it all, the American people have shown resilience and a commitment to the ideals upon which the nation was founded. As the United States faces new challenges in the 21st century, from climate change to political division, it remains a beacon of hope and possibility for people around the world. The spirit of innovation, the diversity of its people, and the strength of its institutions continue to drive the country forward as it seeks to live up to its highest ideals.